Hi. So today we'll have a look at our D365 finance and operations development environment. So to start with, you need to connect to your development environment. Either it is hosted on your Azure or it is locally hosted VM, which you are using for your development purpose. To do that, I normally use my program called M Remote NG, which is actually quite useful program because you can save the IP address and the username and password. So every time you don't need to remember or enter the username and password when you connect, and you don't have to go to LCS and just see whether you have the correct username and password to connect to your development environment. So to do that, I'll just click over here and click on connect. So it will connect to my development environment. Once you connect to your development environment, you have to go to start and click on Visual Studio. So on Visual Studio, you have to make sure that you run it as an administrator. So once you do that, it will launch the Visual Studio 2017. So I am using 2017 right now, but Fndo supports up to 2019. So my VM is a older one, and I don't have the licenses, but I will soon upgrade to 2019 for it. So once the Visual Studio opens up, you will see number of windows on your screen. So at the left hand side, you have your application explorer. In the middle section, you have a screen where you will be typing your code for classes or form or design or doing the designing. And in the right hand side, you will have your team explorer, solution explorer, as well as properties. You can always customize this layout, but this is a standard one and which I like to use. So you can always just play around with this view according to your preferences and play with it and set it up as per your convenience. So to give you an overview for development of D365 F&O, which is much more similar to previous versions, which were AX 2009 and 2012. We have something called AOT, which is Application Object Tree. So application object tree comprises of all the objects which are there in finance and operations for these applications. So you can see over here from the data types to system documentation, there are various type of elements, and this all elements have huge number of sub elements, and you will see that okay, so it's a uh, huge set of objects. So to start with, we have data types. So data types are basically our inbuilt data types, which are like string, date, number. So these are all data types which we use in our tables. So we have some standard data types used for certain tables where you need to set up your labels, field length, relationships, all those things. So that we do at a data type level, so that every time we do a change, we don't have to go to all the tables wherever that similar data type is used and change labels or change the relationships. So that is use of data types. Then you have data models. So data models will have tables, table extension. So extension is another concept which was introduced in 2000, sorry, which was introduced in D365 F&O, which was not there in previous versions. Then you have queries, query extension, data entities. Data entity is also a new thing which was which was introduced in 2012 R3, and it went ahead with 365 as well. Then you have maps, table collections, that is for your data model. Then you have code. So basically, your code comprises of all the classes and macros what you use as a backbone of your processing and calculation and all the validations and everything. Then you have user interface. So user interfaces are your forms, titles, menus, styles, menus, and menu extensions. Then you have analytics, reports, SSRS reports, business process and flows, workflows. So these are basically your workflows and all the elements related to that workflow. You have label files, which we use for our labels and translate to different languages using the same label, so you don't have to handle it separately. Then you have resources. Resources are like you have icons, you have images, all those resources. You have configuration, which is your licenses again, and the configuration comes into the picture when you are actually setting up your environment. Based on your licenses, you will be able to use certain modules. So if you are doing an ISV development, you need to know about this configurations, because you will be setting up a configuration for your newly developed objects. So you need to set all those properties over there. Then you have security. So security is basically the security rules, duties, and privileges what we use to set up the user security and F&O. So we have role level security, record level security, duties, privileges. There are multi-layer in security framework in D365. So to access those objects, you need to go to security. Then we have references. So references are basically DLL, which are used by uh, F&O. You can have your own DLS created and reference it to your code. Sometimes you will create a code which you don't want to give access to. So you create your DLL, add your reference, and refer it in your code. We have services. So services are basically your third party integrations, or you have standard services which you use, which are actually coming from the legacy. So these are services which you will be running and using for various operations. And then we have system documentation. So system documentation is basically your help. Also info on all the objects which are there in AOT. You will find most of the objects over here, but I cannot guarantee that you will find everything. But as I know, Microsoft has created this resource quite extensively. So I don't. I would say you will get everything, most of the things over here. Uh, then to start with your development, you need to create a project. So once you go to your project, you have to click on new project. So in the project, you will be selecting option called D365. So Dynamics 365, you will see which kind of project you want to create. So you can have best practice rules. So you can define your own best practices for your development, and you can create that project, set it up for your PSTS, and use it for the validation. So then you have developer tools admin, which is a quite handy project. But you, as a technical consultant and specifically for a customization purpose, you will not be using this kind of projects. Finance and operations. So this is the main project which you will be using for all of your customizations and setting it up accordingly. So once I click on that, here it will ask me what would be the location of my project, whether I want to add it to my source control, or do I want to create a directory or solution for this project. You can have a naming for your project, so which is based on the coding standard. So here you have to specify that, and you just click on OK, and it will create a new project. Then you can see that D3 Visual Studio has a tool menu for D365. So it also has various options for you. So starting with first option, which is deploy, which is used to create your deployment packages. So if you have not set up your DevOps CI/CD for your environment, and you can create your development package from this option. Then you have model management. You can create your new models. So models is something which is development concept which has been there since 2009. I would say I started with 2009, so I know 2009 had it. 4.0, I'm not sure. Most probably it also had it. So you can create your own model over here. You can refresh your models. You can update model parameters, and you can update your dependencies of the models. So that is one menu items over here. Import project. You can import other projects which you have created to your particular solution right now. that is also possible. You can build models. In build models, if you are working on a particular model and you want to rebuild it, or you are starting from the scratch, this option is your go-to option. And synchronized database, so on an AOS, if you are creating a new table, or you have modified an existing table, and if you want to sync it with your database, so you click on synchronized database. Well, basically it's a standard and best practice for a developer to synchronize database every time when we do a build of a project. So you don't have that possibility where project is built but database is not synchronized, so when you are running the program you get an error. So that's something to make sure that you have it enabled every time. Then you have find labels. So labels are basically your text what you see on UI, or in infolog, or in error message, or in batch jobs. So these are the labels which we use for our development as well. So you can find labels. There are plenty of labels available out of the box, and which 90 percentage of time you will be utilize them. But if you cannot, you can always create through label creation. uh, then find a tag reference. So in this developer documentation, if you have done any tag references, you can find a tag reference from here. Then we have metadata source. Metadata is basically data about data. So if you want to do anything search related to that, you can do with that metadata search. Then in Infolog, we have several other options available. In add-ins, we have several other options available, which will go through in other videos. But that's it from now. I hope this will help you to start and go ahead with the taxing. Uh, Thank you.